Welcome, welcome everybody to another Tuesday night in the spotlight. Tonight I have joining me Andrzej Jaronski, and Andrzej is here to talk to us tonight about his crystal healing bed. Andrzej is a Reiki Master with a degree from the University of Waterloo. He's a graduate of the Hoffman Process. Andrzej is currently working on a book outlining his experiences in Abadiania, Brazil at the Casa de Dom Inacio. I think I still messed it up, even though I made it more phonetic for me, Andrzej. My apologies, and welcome to In the Spotlight. So can you tell us, what is a crystal healing bed? Because we did have some people asking about that.
Okay. Well, it's basically, boy, oh boy, I'm getting kind of tongue-tied here. It's not really, it's a bit of a misnomer. You can see behind me, it's 7 lights. They're actually a special clear quartz crystal. And it's a special cut. It's called a Vogel cut. And apparently it's a 12-sided cut. So there's right here, there's 6. And then right at the tip, there's another 6 sides. And apparently the angle on the one of the tip, the 52-degree angle, is very similar to the angle of one of the Giza pyramids.
Okay.
And, light comes through that. There's like a filter in there, and it represents the different chakra, the 7 main physical chakras, starting at the head and down to the root chakra. And it pulses. And this particular bed, I can set the crystal, the pulse. I'll just show you.
Okay.
And there's a little adjuster here where I can adjust it to go very, very quickly or very, very slowly. And that speed is also determined, is useful. I'll just leave it running.
Okay.
It's useful depending on if someone's coming in and they've got some really heavy duty work that needs to be done on them. I would want to have it at a slow rate. But if they're healthier and they can handle it, I will put it up more rapidly. But
okay.
A session usually lasts about anywhere from 20 minutes to 1 hour, but they recommend no more than 1 hour a day on the crystal bed.
Okay.
So the whole idea is basically to, much like in Reiki, it's about getting your energy back into alignment. And when your energy is back in a better alignment, then it actually can promote a healing reaction in a person. I mean, obviously, if they're relaxed. Some people might say, "Well, why don't I just lay down on a bed?" You know what? I've done that, or I've laid on a bed, but I lay on here, and it's a different experience.
Mm. Absolutely. And I've had a crystal bed healing experience in the past, and it was such an interesting experience for myself because I went in with an idea of this is what I'm going to get the healing for, and ended up having a totally different experience that was different than what my expectation was, but it was exactly what I needed. So can people set the intention, like when they're going in, can they set an intention to say, I want healing with this? Or is it better to just go in with an open mind and say, I just want to experience what this can bring for me?
I would answer both. If you do have a very severe issue that you want to deal with, then yes, you definitely can come in with that intention, but have it as an open intention, meaning if you don't get it resolved or something else happens, you need to understand that in the course of healing, many times something else has to be healed first before the other issue is healed as well.
Absolutely.
The analogy I've heard was, imagine a sheet, let's say a big white bed sheet, but it's got all these terrible knots in it and everything. Well, sometimes what you got to do is you got to work on the easiest knots first.
Absolutely. I can
the analogy.
Totally see that. I'm thinking of a necklace actually that's been all knotted, and it's not about getting to that root knot. It's about getting those kind of looser ones undone. Yeah. I love that analogy. I'm going to steal that from you and start using that.
Sure. Go ahead.
So we do have someone asking you where the bed is located. And with that note, do you take clients in to go on your crystal healing bed?
Oh yes, oh yes. But unfortunately now with what's been happening lately, now it has been lifting.
Yeah.
So I mean, but yeah, we do it. It's we're up in Waterloo. We're not far from the St. Jacobs Market. We're actually near. We back onto Bridge Street. We're very close to Northfield Drive, so we're at King and Northfield.
Awesome. All right. And I will post your contact information when this is over, so anybody can reach out to you if they're looking to have a session with you. So is there anything special about the crystals themselves, or is it through the light that's coming through the crystal that makes it more powerful?
It's what I find. It's a bit of a mystery. I've looked at a lot of the descriptions other people have made about the crystal bed and or about the crystals themselves. And there's some stuff that I haven't heard. And then I thought some of the stuff they're saying kind of borders on, but for the most part, the power, I think, is the fact that, now this is going to be a little wooey, maybe not to some of your viewers, but to a lot of people, all these crystal beds, because there's hundreds, if not thousands of them out there around the planet now. And each of them, they have entities, non-corporeal entities that are assigned to each of these crystal beds. And it's kind of going through, some people have said that it's like a portal where they come in, they work on people, and then, well, I forgot my train of thought there. Maybe I should turn this crystal bed off because I think it's starting to work on me. Hang on. What was your question? Because I have don't let my topic get in the way of what I want to say, right? Because I tend to wander off sometimes.
Gotcha. So my question was about the crystals themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Is there like a difference with the crystals, or what makes the crystals so special for each bed?
It's the way they've been cut. There was from what I've read, it was an IBM engineer by the name of Vogel, Vogel, and he studied the effect of crystals. I mean, they use quartz crystals in watches and all kinds of things.
Yeah.
And they're designed so that the frequency of light, I guess, that comes down is designed to sort of bring your own chakras into a harmony. I guess the frequency is similar, and that's what that's all about.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and they're actually perfectly. They've got the clearest crystals they could possibly find, and there's like obviously you can see there's 7 of them, and others said that it's like a laser energy, but I think of a James Bond movie where they're trying to slice and dice James Bond, and it's like, no, it's not like that, you know.
No, and I can affirm that it is not like laser. I know when I went in for my first session, you kind of get this idea in your mind when you're thinking of these crystals and these lights and stuff. And I almost feel like I thought I would feel something very physical on me while I was receiving the treatment, but I didn't. But in my mind and in my body, I could energetically feel so much shifting and changing and everything, which really made it a beautiful experience.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So what have your experiences been on the crystal bed? I mean, you've got one in your house. I've only gone to one place to have it done. So I'm like, I'd be on it every day.
Well, I try to be on it a couple of times a week or more often. Actually, I had to go on it a couple of days ago. I was having some kidney issues, and I was laying on the bed, and near the end of my session, just above my back, like on my backbone in a band, I could feel a lot of pain. And that's one thing that people seem to, our society is so big on avoid pain. But I've learned over the last few years that it's a good sign. You don't have to look at it as negative. It means that it's working and they're clearing stuff out. And I really noticed the difference almost right away of the pain or my kidneys starting to be a little bit better,
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, like I noticed that right away. Like the very first time I was ever on a crystal bed, this was way back probably 6 years ago or more, I did feel like hands on a hand on my foot. I could, but I think I kind of freaked out, and I really haven't really felt any hands or stuff touching me. But I do know after I get off the crystal bed, I definitely feel something. The one that you used, which was that, well, I used that one many, many times, the same one you used. And there were, the very first time I experienced it was at a quantum healing day at Unity Church.
Yeah.
And I was only on it for 10 minutes and I had to go sit down. And I found so many times with that bed, I couldn't leave right away. I had to sit for 10, 15 minutes, drink some water. I actually have blessed water that I brought back from Brazil. So I always have a stock of it. And I will have clients drink that afterwards to help ground them as well. Plus it also purifies. Because in the blessed water, I also have a clear quartz crystal that I got in Brazil, very clear. And I have it in the water all the time.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. So
now, what would people typically want to have a crystal bed session for? Would you say it's more for a physical healing? Is it more for a spiritual or emotional healing?
Well, wow. It's more what I've learned over the years, that all the physical ailments, when something shows up in your body physically, it's been in your energetic body for a long, 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 long time.
Yeah. And
so when you're coming for a crystal bed session, and let's say you're doing it because you actually have a physical ailment, many people may end up being disappointed because they're thinking, well, I have one session and then I'm perfectly cured and all that. That ain't going to happen, because when you think about the energy that's stuck in the body, the energy pattern, because a lot of disease is low vibration. Can you imagine somebody being instantly healed? What stresses that would take on their body, because their vibration would have to be raised very, very quickly.
Yeah. I
mean, when I was attuned to first degree Reiki and I was being treated, after the attunement, I was being treated. My whole body was shaking and shivering. And the other attendees there were getting scared. But basically the crux of the matter was my body, the vibration was slowly adjusting to the Reiki energy. And I understand that's kind of like a healing crisis. Now, I don't know if I've read that some people say they might have a healing reaction after they go on the bed. With the people that I've treated, I've never really noticed that. One person that I treated, she was on the bed and she actually had her seeing eye dog with here as well. And the seeing eye dog was very rambunctious.
I can imagine.
You're standing there and the dog jumps right up and kisses you on the nose. And I was like, okay. And she reported afterwards that night she slept right through, and even the dog slept and was relaxed. Because when you're sleeping, if you can have a restful sleep, that's where a lot of your body is regenerating and healing, right? Yeah. So I would say at the very, very least, if it promotes relaxation, pretty much like what Reiki does as well, Yeah, I don't know. I was trying to, what was I going to say now? Oh, well, there's my.
That's okay. I've got a question for you anyways. So if someone, say, had epilepsy or was more prone to seizures, is it safe for them to use a crystal healing bed, or is it recommended that they do not?
No, I haven't heard anything about it. The thing, I guess, with that you have to be careful for is the strobing effect.
That's why I was asking.
Yeah. Well, I'll just show you. Before a person sits down, we put this on, and I'll have a tissue over top, and it's just placed over the eyes. So you're not going to see the strobing effect at all.
Oh, so it should be fine.
Yeah, it should be fine. You have that.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Now, is there any special preparations that people need to go through in order to have a crystal healing? Is there, should they meditate beforehand, set an intention, or what do they need to do?
It's probably a good idea. Like the setting the intention is a good idea. They highly recommend to wear as light a clothing as possible, because with the lighter clothing, the entities can see your energy pattern much better, not like more clearly.
Mm-hmm.
And they also ask you not to wear any heavy metal objects like belts or stuff. Though
Okay.
if you have like, say, like I've got a necklace and you wear it 24/7, it's pretty much adjusted. You can do that. Because I know the one time I had a necklace that I don't wear that often, and I forgot to take it off. And I could actually feel the difference, that it was like, I don't know how to explain it. It was almost like it was interfering. And then when I took it off, I noticed the difference right away. So I guess there's a reason, the reason why they want the metal, like have the metal off.
Yeah.
So.
Now, I know you keep talking about these entities. So can you explain, would it be kind of like spirit guides that are attached to the bed that would work with it? Is that kind of the idea, or?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's pretty much it. I mean, I don't really know, like they don't say, well, this is so and so with this particular bed. It's not, it
Yes.
just not, it doesn't work that way. And from what I've gathered on the other side, names don't really matter, like they're not hung up on the ego, like we are.
Yes, yes. Um, and so with that, with the entities that are coming along with the bed, and because I know you've gone on different beds, have you felt, I'm going to say, a different energy coming through with the different entities that are attached to each bed, or is it in the crystals themselves that they would have a different energy for each bed?
That's a tough question. I never really thought of the crystals having different energy, but logically, I would think if they're not exactly cut the same, there might be a different energy. But I would think different beds have different entities, and some entities work differently than others.
Mm-hmm.
How they approach an issue.
Yeah. Okay. So how long is a typical session? Would you say 10 minutes? Like, what would be ideal for a first timer?
The sessions that are usually, the first time I tried it was like 20 minutes.
Okay.
And they have 20, you can have a 20-minute, 40, or 1 hour, or anywhere in between, but the limit is 1 hour. You don't want to be on it that much longer. And I have found that if I've actually fallen asleep, I will wake up and it'll be right at the 1 hour mark. So it's like they don't let you go beyond that, or at least for me, they don't let me go beyond the 1 hour mark.
Yeah. Awesome. Now, I know you're writing a book right now. So do you want to give us a little bit of insight into what you're kind of writing about, or is it connected to the crystal bed?
It is actually more connected. I started writing the book before I got the crystal bed.
Okay.
We didn't get the crystal bed till September 2018. So no, the book was started after my first time down there in 2014. And it's just, I'm actually starting to go into it. I haven't looked at it in quite a while. So I really looked at it in quite a while. Because it's the funny thing is that when I started writing it, I was in this state of mind or of being. And then I've gone 5 other times down to Brazil, and each time it's a little different. And then I try to get back to the writing, and it's like, but I'm not the same person. So it's like all these slightly different people trying to write this book. And so at some point I'm going to have to get through it, and because I've got a fair chunk into it. It's just keeping it going,
Yeah, well, absolutely. And as a book writer, I can totally understand when you're one person when you start, but a totally different person when you finish. And it's almost like a multiple personality thing that's coming out, because you change and transform so much, especially when you're engaged in that healing work yourself.
Yeah.
So what piqued your interest about going down to Brazil in the first place? Because I know that's where the crystal beds are coming from.
Wow.
So
in 2012, that was the end, that whole end of the Mayan calendar.
Oh yeah, I'm totally into it.
Doomsday baloney that they put out there. In as a birthday gift in roughly around May, the retina in this eye detached.
Mm.
And when I went to the doctor, he said it was the worst tear he's ever seen. And he said, you'll be lucky if you see out of that eye. And that's really what prompted me to go, because I was desperate, because it was my dominant eye. I didn't want to lose the ability to drive or anything. And through a series of coincidences, because I don't believe in coincidences, I was led to go see a shaman in Guelph, and he relocated his business in his basement. And I walked in the one day and saw this giant triangle on the wall, and that's sort of the symbol that they use down in Brazil. They don't have a religious symbol like a crucifix or anything like that. And I asked him about it, and he said, well, that's about this spiritual healer in Brazil, and that's the only one I'll ever go to. And I ended up what was interesting, because it was still in the winter time, and after my session with him, I came home and I was about to go into the bedroom, and all of a sudden I got this download, this knowing that said, you're going to Brazil. And at the time I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified, because I had no means of getting down there. And I was almost in abject panic. And then I just sort of looked up and it said, you want me to be there? You arrange it. And within about a month or two, a financial windfall came that allowed me to go within a 1-year period 3 times.
Wow.
You know, and that was another story that really is touching, because so many people who have needed to go down, the entities or whoever have managed to arrange people to get down there. It's absolutely amazing. So that's basically kind of a long-winded way of what brought me down there. But I knew the eye issue was deeper, because I've been a Reiki master since 1998. So I already knew.
Before Reiki was even cool. That's awesome.
Before people thought Reiki is what you did on the leaves in the fall.
Yes.
Just they didn't know that. I actually saw a comic where someone actually had a rake and they were going on a person's back.
That's how we'll be doing it post-COVID.
Yeah. So that's really what started my journey. And I always wanted, I down there, I didn't really get introduced to that's not true. I mean, I wasn't really drawn at the time to really do the crystal bed, but I did have some crystal bed sessions down there. And because where they're located, there's a humongous, underneath the ground, there's a humongous crystal bed. I mean, a bed of crystal rock, huge area, absolutely huge. And it really amplified the energy. A couple of times when my wife, Eva, who used to be your teacher, by the way,
yes,
was down, we had both booked the same 20-minute session or whatever. We came out, we sat on the bench, and we were both like zonked out, because we were still being worked on even after we left. We knew we were worked on, and we had to rest and that's the common thing with the crystal bed. You got to rest afterwards. Do not plan anything afterwards. If if you're going to come, you need to book a block of time, so that gives you time to obviously be on the crystal bed, relax afterwards. If you feel like sharing some of your experiences, you're welcome to have some blessed water to ground. And then when you're ready to go, it could be 20 minutes or whatever. And then you can go, because it can be very powerful for some people if they're really sensitive.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important too, to give people that moment to kind of ground in to what the new vibration is that they're in, because when you're releasing or changing your vibrations, it's so important to ground. I know I took a class once and we didn't ground or anything after the class, and I almost got into a car accident about 4 times before I finally pulled over and went and stood in the grass, because I was like, I'm not grounded. I am like, woo, all out here.
Get back in your body, Catherine.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly, exactly. So
Yeah.
I'd love to hear more about your experiences in Brazil, if you don't mind sharing them, because I've read about it in different books and heard it from different speakers and stuff, but I've never actually had a conversation with anybody about it, because I do believe it's all a part of the journey to the crystal bed and what that can bring forward for people.
Yeah. Um, one of the very first the down in Brazil, they have what they call Casa Days at the Casa de Dom Inacio. They have Casa Days, and they're Wednesday to Friday, and there's a morning session and an afternoon session, and you can volunteer for what they call a spiritual intervention or a psychic kind of a psychic surgery.
Okay.
And I was there for 2 weeks, and the very first Wednesday, I thought, I'm I'm here. I've got to go. So I stood up and went in and went through what they call the current rooms, and and then there was a made my way with all the other people into the intervention room, which really looked like just like a tiny church with wooden pews and stuff. Not really a church, but it felt like that, like a quaint chapel or something. We were asked to close our eyes, put our hand over the area we want healed, or if we don't know, just put it over our hearts. And I'm sitting there, and I somehow picked the very front row, and I remember exactly where I was sitting. And I closed my eyes, and all of a sudden I smelled ether, the old anesthetic that they used to use. And I thought, well, that's really weird. And then afterwards, I found out much later that one of the entities is known for using ether.
Love it.
So that was one of my experiences with the surgery. And then I waited till Friday to come back again, and I waited and went again for another surgery. And you won't believe it's in a room with hundreds of people in the surgery room, intervention room, they call it. I was seated in exactly the same seat I was 2 days previous. What are the odds of that happening?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Now, I didn't smell any ether, but I started to suspect, well, maybe there's a certain arrangement or whatever that they wanted me, to work on. And I'm also thinking of another experience I had on my next visit. But what they have as well, after you have a surgery, 7 days afterwards, you have to have what they call a white night. Because one of the things I didn't mention earlier, when you're in on the grounds on the Casa Day, everybody needs to be dressed in white so the entities can see you, see your color, like your energy field. And the 7 days afterwards, you have to have a white night. So I had a surgery on the Wednesday. On the Tuesday, following Tuesday evening, I had to dress in white before going to bed, have a glass of blessed water covered by my bed. And this was really strange because I actually started to wake up while my spiritual suture were being removed. And for a split second, I saw the room that I was in. And it was like a couple of surgeons, regular surgeons, and the room was completely white subway tile. And it was just for a split second, I could hear them. And it was funny because one of the ladies there was another lady, I think from Denmark, who was staying there. And I ended up talking to her. And she said she actually woke up, even was awake longer during the suture removal process, the spiritual sutures. So some of the stuff I'm talking about here would probably qualify me for one of those canvas jackets with the extra long arms. But it's a reality that I can't tell anybody except maybe you, because you'll understand, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So,
And I think this is why it's so important that we build a tribe around us of people that we can actually talk about these experiences with, because sometimes they are so surreal and it's hard for our own minds to comprehend, let alone explaining to other people what it
well,
is that we've experienced.
well, the other thing that's happened to me as well. I mean, Reiki opened up my sort of my intuition, mediumship abilities, and after my first visit there, oh my God! I mean, one of the special mediums that actually worked with John of God, who we're talking about here, he actually came up to Canada, and he actually had meditations that he held in Cambridge and in Kitchener, and he held some meditations. And I had some incredible experiences there, first time in my life, where I saw a face suddenly show up while I'm meditating. And then I saw, it's almost like all these spirits were gathering, because there's a lot of trapped souls that haven't moved on for whatever reason, you know, whether they don't know if they're dead or they're hanging on. And it was almost like when this medium came and all of us were there, it was like they were coming to be helped over to the other side. And I started exploring my mediumship abilities, and I kind of backed away from that, because it's a blessing and a curse at the same time, you know. But yeah. The crystal bed, I tell you, it helps keep me, how do I put it? I want to say level, but that's not the right word. I can't think of the right word. Now, the one thing I should mention, at the time I got the crystal bed, you had to ask the entity permission. And when I say the entity, at the time it was John of God. He would incorporate up to like 36 different entities. And you had to go up and ask him, can I get a crystal bed? So, and I did, and luckily I was very happy. He gave me permission, and we were able to get it back. We got it back absolutely no problems. And I forget sometimes that it's a real, you know, a real honor to have one, to have a crystal bed.
Absolutely. Now, do people actually get turned down?
I would imagine so.
Okay.
One of the weird things down there, they have down on the grounds there, off to the grounds, they have a sacred waterfall. And just a few months ago, we actually came back. We had 1 week in quarantine in Brazil before we came back to Canada. And on the very, very last day before they shut the casa down completely because of the pandemic, I was taken down to the waterfall, sacred waterfall. Now, because the medium wasn't there, I went. But I did ask once or twice if I could go to the sacred waterfall, and the entity said no, I wasn't ready for it. I guess they must have assumed I wasn't ready for it.
Yeah.
Well, I'd never been down there, and so I did go to the sacred waterfall. It was an amazing experience because it wasn't crowded at all. I had the place to myself, and it was absolutely beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. Yeah. And they had it was in the rainy season too, so there was quite a bit of water, and you think Brazil's hot. This water was freezing.
Now, what makes the waterfall sacred? Is there crystals within that kind of area, or?
Well, it's part and parcel on the same property. And so underground, I guess there's crystals. I mean, the water was so clean, and I mean, I'm not sure. I think it has to be blessed. I mean, there's some strict guidelines when you go there, you know, only one person at a time, and no bathing or anything, you know, that would be disrespectful or anything like that. Yeah. So
now, are you able to go into the water then, or is it just kind of like a view the water?
No, you actually come down, you wind down, and there's like a railing that you have to hold on to, and the water's coming down literally on the railing part. And then they tell you to put your head in first, go one way, and then turn around and then do it the other way, and try to stay in as long as you can, like a minute or whatever. But I'm telling you though, it was the wet season, so there was a lot of water, because sometimes it's just a dribble, right? But yeah, from what I've heard anyways.
Awesome. Now we do have Tammy asking, what part of Brazil did you go to?
It's in central Brazil. It's the heart of Brazil. We're about an hour and a half east of Brasilia, in a little town called Abadiania in the state of Goiás. And Goiás is spelled Goiás. And it's a really nondescript village. Like there's it's actually the place is north of this highway called 60, Route 60, that divides right through. You have the main city part, or the town, to the south of it, and the little enclave or a little kind of a village is sort of to the north of the highway, and the casa is right at the very end.
Awesome. Now, I know you said you've gone multiple times. So, and I get it, because there's places I've been that I'm like, I just want to keep going back to this place because I love the energy here.
Yeah.
So is it just the energy of the place that gets you to keep going back, or is it the community there, the spiritual enlightenment? What is it that has you going back constantly? I know I ask hard questions.
I don't know if I can really verbalize it. I can sort of give you an off the cuff remark, like saying, well, I'm there to sort of continue my healing, you know?
Yeah.
But because now that there's a drastically fewer people there, like when we first got there, I could tell the numbers were slowly going up, but then when the pandemic came, all of a sudden it was dead. And this time around, it was a really sense of community. I felt we met some wonderful people. We met this Polish lady who's from New York. When I asked her, I said, "You're Polish, you're from Poland," because my background's Polish. I said, "Where are you from?" She goes, "New York." I started laughing. It was hilarious, but bless her heart, I never met anybody who had a bigger heart. She was really amazing. And we got to know the proprietor of the one of the major food places there. It's called Fruities, and they're big on like healthy smoothies, you know, and they got a huge assortment of that. And it was I want to say it was a swinging place, you know, like Steve Martin, but no, it was pretty, it was yeah, it was very much definitely social this time around, getting to meet and to know the people, and having to meet, you know, getting to reacquaint, like say hi to people we met years ago, and touch base with that, and you know, but you know what it is as well, Catherine. Whenever we come back from there, there's about a 2-3 week period where we're still like really like mellow and peaceful, and I mean, especially with the forced lockdown, where it was so quiet because you couldn't hear traffic on the street, because we back onto Bridge Street here,
Yeah.
and you couldn't hear the traffic, and it really just added to the healing, you know. And again, it was like a sense of community that sort of has that's developed there. We don't know, nobody knows where it's going to head now, but the fact remains is that the entities down there, they never stopped working. They never stopped. So I don't know how to explain it. It's like you go down there, and I don't know yet.
Honestly, I think the best experiences that we have in life are the ones that we have very few words to be able to explain.
Yeah.
That's when you know it's like a complete spiritual experience, because in spirit, we don't need words. It's just all those feelings and stuff. So I love that you're actually having a difficult time explaining it, because I'm like, oh, it's totally a spiritual experience. I get it.
You know, I'd like to think that I'm a bit of a writer, and trying to come up with words that's one of the things that because the place is named after Saint Ignatius of Loyola, the founder of the Jesuit movement. And one of the famous quotes is attributed to him. He says, "For those who don't believe, no proof is enough. And for those who do believe, no proof is necessary." So basically it's saying you need to experience is really what really counts. I mean, you know, I personally believe that we're not the only intelligent people in the intelligent beings in the universe, because this universe is just too big.
Yeah.
And I've known one or two people that have experienced things that were a little bit different, and that will affect their entire life. It'll affect how they look at everything from here on in. And when you have a deeply spiritual experience like I've had, it affects you in ways that you never knew would. And many times that results in you end up jettisoning friends. And not that you got rid of them on purpose, but they just sort of drift away, and you find new ones, you know. And like you were talking about earlier, the sense of community that we have to develop, you know, because it's important.
Absolutely.
More
Absolutely.
importantly,
Now, Megan's asking how your eye is now. It's a great question, Megan.
it's a very good question. It is definitely better. Um, I had an eye exam about a year or so ago, and I can still drive. That would actually reminds me of one fella down there. He's an American. Now I don't know if he's been there lately, but he's been down there 40 times, 40 plus
Wow.
times. He has no retina in his eyes, and he showed everybody his driver's license. So and it's interesting because when my wife went to see her eye doctor, the eye doctor said the eyes don't do the seeing. Eyes don't do the seeing. Okay, all right. And so it's kind of freaky. It's kind of
Well,
freaky.
yeah, because it's like, well, that's what we've been taught. That's what the eyes are there for.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, boy, so much they've tried to debunk him and everything, but you can't debunk the work that's happened down there. And if you ever look at some of the stuff online that about some of the healings that have gone on, there was an award-winning documentary that was made some years ago called Healing, and that's a powerful one. That's a really powerful movie. And then there was another one, I think, by an Australian producer a couple of years later called A Quest to Heal, where the woman went down and she was having her breast cancer metastasized, and she went down there and she was down there for a long time, and her cancer tumors shrunk by half.
Wow.
But when she came back home to Australia, unfortunately, I'm giving away the movie, but
It's okay.
unfortunately, because she was too afraid to dive into the emotional causes of her disease, she ended up passing away.
Mm.
And that's the other thing, that's not always sunshine and roses for some people. Some people, they go and it's only to ease them as they transition, so they're not terrified of crossing over, you know.
Yeah.
So it helps the healing in that regard too.
Yeah.
You
Well,
know?
and I think that's part of our human condition to think that healing means no death,
Yeah,
and death it's what we're all here to do. It's the only thing that's guaranteed for all of us. Every day we're working towards our death. It's just how we experience getting there that's different for each of us. Um, but the healing could still be taking place, and death is the result of that healing as well.
yeah, yeah. Such a tremendous phobia in North America about death, and they almost treat it like it doesn't exist. And I think if you make friends with death, it's not such a terrible thing, and it'll oddly enough you'll live a better life if you make friends with death.
Yes, because you're more apt to experience life.
Yeah,
Because if you die, you die, and it's okay, and you're almost more accepting of it. Not that that's kind of what your goal is each day, is to meet death, but rather that if it happens, I'm okay because I've lived life to
yeah,
my fullest.
yeah, yeah. And much like the lockdown, I mean, you realize what's really important, you know. For
Yeah.
me, it was a haircut, and so I did it myself.
I cut my own hair too. It was the one thing I wanted to do in quarantine. So, yeah, but you're absolutely right. With the lockdown that happened, I think it made a lot of people realize what were the most important things to them.
Mhm.
Simple things that you take for granted, hugs,
Yeah,
being able to drop in on a friend or seeing family, that sort of thing. For my little guy, it's all about parks. He misses parks so badly right now. So where before he'd be like, oh, the park again. So
yeah,
you do end up taking things for granted. And this has been a great reflection, I think, for all of us to be able to see what is the most important for us now.
yeah, for sure, for sure.
So just coming back to the crystal bed, because we did get a little bit off topic and we are coming up on an hour here. What is the cost of a session with you if anybody's wanting to book a session?
I generally charge about $1.25 a minute.
Okay.
So, um, because my experience, like with Reiki, time is irrelevant. So you can get just as good of a benefit from a 20-minute session versus an hour. But I mean, many times people fall asleep and they need that sleep, right?
Yeah.
So this is where I have a little trouble charging money. I really do. I honestly do. But at the same time, there has to be a value assigned to it only because it's an energy exchange, right?
Exactly.
I mean, 20 minutes would be like, I don't know, $25. I can do it on a graduated scale for people who really want it and can't afford it, because I don't want to deny anybody the opportunity if they can't afford it. That's just not fair.
Yeah.
They're really sincere about it. So that's basically what the rate is. That's the going rate pretty much, I think, about $1 a minute or a little bit more.
Awesome. Okay. And post a crystal bed healing session, I know you were saying people should really rest and really take that time to kind of incorporate that new energy into their body system. Is there any other recommendations you have for people after a session?
No, I think that's pretty much it. I mean, maybe be mindful of your dreams if you have any dreams, if because there might be a message there for you. Just be gentle on yourself. I mean, don't expect that your mind's going to be like snap, snap, like really quick, because just be mindful. You might have some experiences, or even like I don't want to say healing crisis or anything like that, because I've never really heard of that. A lot of people, I hear most of the time, people just end up having a really good night's sleep.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah. No, don't do anything strenuous. That's all.
Awesome. And I think you've answered everyone's questions so far, and even the questions that I've had. Do you have any final words of wisdom, that just anything on your heart that you're like, the world needs to hear this right now?
This whole thing, like, I see I call it absolutism, has to stop. People, the sides are too sharply defined, and really, I don't know. When I think about the healing part, I mean, you have a pain, you go grab a Tylenol, but sometimes the pain is a good instructor, or sometimes the pain is saying that something good is happening to your body. I always liken it to spiritual Drano. Doing any type of energy work can be spiritual Drano. Because when you first apply Drano, what's the first stuff that comes out? Crap.
Yeah.
Not pretty. It's not fun. But if you understand, you might have a different relationship with that pain and realize, oh, wait a minute, this is not necessarily bad. It's telling me something's happening, So I guess that would be the sort of the lesson, sort of not to assume that it's bad. It may not be bad at all.
Absolutely. I absolutely love that, because so often people will go into this spiritual journey or go into a healing session and expect everything's just going to be kind of love and light and beautiful and everything else. And then pain does come up. And for some people, it's very scary because they're not used to accepting the pain or embracing the pain. But that is actually where the healing is most likely to happen, is through the pain. Exactly. So that's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Is there anything else you wanted to add on before we hop off here tonight?
No, but it's already an hour.
We still have like 10 minutes left. I just don't have any questions. And I'm going, oh, shoot, what else? So I was like, give us something else to go on here.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, I was just trying to think of some other, maybe, I don't know if listeners would be interested in some of the other healing stories or things that have happened down there. I'm just trying to think now off the top of my head. Wow. I've many times, the entity there, he has healed people who couldn't walk. Well, here's an example. In the movie Healing, there's an Austrian girl who was having epileptic seizures for quite a while. And she finally got healed. She had on her last trip, She had come down, went straight to the casa as soon as she got off the plane or whatever. She dropped off her stuff at her posada. And then he said, "You're already healed." But what I found out afterwards, the reason she was having epileptic fits is that she was trying to run away from her spiritual gift of a medium. I think she was a medium.
Wow.
That's why it was manifesting as an epileptic fit for her. Another story was of a Austrian surgeon that went down there, and he had colon cancer. And when he came back to Germany, or Austria, I should say, they x-rayed him and they said, "Where did you get your operation?" He had sutures. You could see the sutures inside of him, but the skin wasn't cut.
Wow.
And then while they were at it, he had macular degeneration in his eye, which is incurable, and they fixed that. So he got a side benefit. Now, if I may be so bold, and I'm pretty sure I might have my wife's permission on this, she was having a lot of problems down by her ovaries, and she was in a lot of pain. And one of the things that happens frequently, as soon as you book your flight to go to Brazil, the entities start to work on you. And as soon as I booked the flight for her, because this was on the third time for me, the first time for her in 2014. And she was in pain for the few months because we booked it early and we had to wait a few months to go. And she said when she was down there, she said she felt the cutting. And one of the things they also have is post-surgery, you have something called passiflora herbs. They're made from passion flowers, and they're to help for healing. And they are specifically designed for each person, because when they go to pick them up at the pharmacy, the entities put the energy in the pills specifically for the person. And someone actually took a photo, and you could see entities hanging around the pharmacy. It was just freaking weird.
I love it.
And with my wife, I call her Aphie. That's the sort of an endearment of Eva. And she had that pain. And meanwhile, I brought her down to a soup area because they serve a blessed soup after the morning session. And it's part of the treatment. It's a blessed soup, and it's very delicious. And so I brought her down, and she was in rough shape because this was after her intervention and surgery. And I'm thinking I should have just taken her, put her in a taxi and sent her back to our place. But anyway, she was there, and I ran off to get her herbs, and she said she could feel hands holding her up.
Wow.
You know, and then fast forward to a couple of years ago, and she was getting an ultrasound done down in her area. And the woman just kept going over and over and over. And my wife said, "What's going on? Is something wrong?" She says, "I can't find your ovaries." So I suspect that they removed them because her mother had an issue down there. Her grandmother had an issue where she actually had cobalt radiation down there. I can't remember now what the surgery is when you have everything removed. I forget.
A hysterectomy.
Yeah, hysterectomy. And I kind of wonder if my wife had something like that. And
wow.
she's fine. Like she's fine there. So that's just sort of a bit of a healing story that's kind of like, you know, close to home and stuff like that.
And that's absolutely incredible because like it blows my mind. And I believe in this work. I trust in this work and everything. But when you see very physical results like that there's no explanation, it blows my mind every single time. Now, Tammy's asking, is there any reason that anyone should not have a crystal healing bed session?
Wow. The only thing I can think of is if you don't believe that it would do anything for you. Because, you know, it's much like with Reiki energy. A lot of times I remember giving Reiki to somebody and I could clearly, the energy was not going in and they were not ready. So the energy will go where it's needed then, you know. it's never against anybody's will. You're never forced to go down there. If you go on the lie down here, it's up to you. If you feel guided to do it, do it. If you feel guided to go get pranic healing, do it, or reflexology or whatever. If you feel guided, do it. It doesn't matter. This is just one modality among many.
Absolutely. And I absolutely love your answer on that as well, because it really comes down to what you believe in, because whatever it is that you believe in is going to work for you. Yeah. It really is that simple.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's been quite the 1 hour. Wow.
I know we kind of travel all over the place.
Well, that's the way I am too, because it makes it for more interesting session, I would think, and if people know where, what my own experience is or other people's experience is or whatever, that's, I don't know.
And that's exactly why I do these, is so we can all hear from different people about what their experiences are, the healing that they're bringing forward, how they're making an impact in the world, that sort of thing. Because so often we separate ourselves from each other and think we don't have enough to offer. And we all have so much to offer. We can all learn so much if we just sit and listen. So yeah, I really appreciate all of the stories that you've shared and your own experiences and your wife's experiences as well, because it's really actually opened my eyes even more so to crystal healing beds. And I thought I knew already. So that is just very helpful.
Yeah. Well, it's I don't know. It's kind of like, how do I put it here? It just sort of supports, it supports your well-being. I'm afraid to say healing because the medical establishment is it's kind of ironic. They treat symptoms, but they've co-opted the term healing, that only they can use the word healing when all they're doing is treating symptoms, Many times the reason why people went to Brazil is the medical community said, go make your final plans because we can't do anything more for you. And many times people have gone down there and they've been cured of stuff that they couldn't do anything with here. I just wish the system was more open. It is opening up more. There is more awareness, which is good, and I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, I believe it has to be whole body health. Yeah, we have to treat the symptom, but we also have to get to the root of what's causing that symptom and offer healing from both sides.
Oh, of course, it's got to be. There's no question about it. No question about it. Even what you put into your body too.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
All right.
Chips are tasty, but they're not healing. That's for sure.
I know. And then the chips that are supposedly good for you, they taste like cardboard, and that's giving cardboard a bad name.
It's so true.
Well, I hope you like this, enjoyed yourself, and
absolutely.
I had fun. I always like talking about this type of thing because I feel like I was pent up because I don't usually get an opportunity to talk about it because most times people will roll their eyes or slowly shuffle to the other side of the room.
Well, anytime that you want to come on and to chat about it, by all means, just send me a message. And because again, I believe people need to hear about these stories and understand what's available to them in their community or elsewhere. So thank you so much for joining us tonight. Okay. And thank you everyone who came on the call tonight. Next week, we have joining us Christy Berger Jensen, and she'll be talking to us about fear. So I hope you'll be able to join us next Tuesday at 8. Have a great night, everyone. Thank you, Andrzej.
Thank you.